But our next speaker is based in Western Australia. Stacey has an MBA from the Curtin Graduate School of Business. Over 20 years in the industry, expertise across engineering, construction, maintenance, and mining. He has functioned as both the contract miner and the mine owner. Stacey's a strategic thinker and a leader, delivering on scalable enterprise ICTs and technology systems with diversified industry experience covering both domestic and international locations. He's currently serving as the Group Manager of Technology for Perseus Mining, an ASX 200 listed gold mining company with mines based in West Africa. You have to tell us if you've been to any of their mine sites, but I will leave you with him. Thanks, Stace.
Thank you very much. Introduce yourself to...
Yeah. Hi, guys. Hey, Rebecca. I'm joining Stacey today. Actually, it's a bit of a collaboration. So I'm going to just start things off with a bit of an intro and then pass it over to Stacey. But I'll introduce myself for everyone who doesn't know me. I'm Antonia Talarico. I'm the VP Ops for Centric Mining Systems. And we're fairly new to the Datamine group. We've been part of the family for about 3 years now. And if you can tell, I'm from Canada. Cole, another Canadian in the room. It's very nice to be in 30-degree weather. I will tell you that. I won't be complaining about jet lag when I get to walk out into the sun. And so I've been with Centric for just over 10 years. But Centric as a company has been around for almost 24 years now, working in the mining space. So just as a quick background on what Centric is all about, since many of you probably don't know much about us, we are very much an enterprise-focused organization, so are happy to be part of the first Datamine Enterprise Symposium. But what we really have focused on over the years is to deliver an enterprise platform focused very much on ore accounting and delivering operational decision support tools to our customers. And I think, Cole, in your presentation as well, you talked a lot about single source of truth, which is something we love to talk about as well and is very relevant when we're speaking about enterprise platforms and enterprise thinking. And so for Centric, we really have focused on helping our customers to sustainably collect a lot of data from across their operations through integration with existing systems, through manual data collection tools, centralize all these metrics into a single source of truth or a centralized database with validation and security around it, and then provide some tools to actually start transforming all of that data into opportunities to improve the business, to make better, faster decisions. And we've done this globally, and you can see we've got quite a bit of a footprint, mostly in Africa. Actually, it's our largest client base, but we have some larger customers here in Australia as well, with BHP Olympic Dam. There's a lot of BHP people in the room. That's one of our larger clients. And most recently, we've started a project with South 32 at Illawarra Coal. But just really quickly, our product is really broken up into a couple key modules to build out this enterprise platform. And like I've already mentioned, we really focus on that first step of helping our customers to collect all of their data, because we often see our customers have a lot of Excel, which we've talked about today again already. A lot of Excel, a lot of existing systems, a lot of information stuck in silos. So we help our customers to collect and manage all that information, and to provide them tools to understand things like material movements and manage stockpiles, and to have all the visualization of that information through reports and dashboards and notifications, so that our customers can easily understand what's actually going on within their business. And so this all kind of ties into enterprise thinking, and we like to talk about how the 1 + 1 is greater than 2, or 1 + 1 = 3 concept, and the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And I think enterprise probably has a few different definitions, but I think for us at Centric, we really like to think of this collaboration across the business, and how one piece of information, maybe from mining or geology, could affect something going on in the plant, and how will we know that unless we have our information centralized and accessible to us? And there's so many opportunities to improve that can be found if we have some kind of enterprise platform in place. So that's my rant. I will hand it over to Stacey to share his experience implementing an enterprise platform and some of the challenges and successes and lessons learned. So I will skip maybe this guy because you've already been introduced by Rebecca. But I guess, Stacey, you've been with Perseus since about 2020, which is when we were just getting to the second and third site with our Centric project. And Stacey's been one of our main stakeholders, especially of late. So he'll be able to share some interesting information with you guys.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the intro, Beck and Anne. So yeah, been with Perseus about 4 years. Perseus itself has a head office here in Subiaco. All of our operations are in West Africa. So we're at a bit of a time penalty. We're at I guess there's a lot of operational challenges dealing with West Africa. There's the language issues, there's the jurisdictional issues, there's the political risk issues, there's the security issues, there's logistics issues, procurement issues, basically everything that you get thrown at you, we're dealing with on a regular basis there. We've got 3 operating mines, which I'll touch on in a second. When I started, we were about 200,000 ounces a year. We've now doubled that to over 500,000 ounces a year. We're running industry-leading all-in sustaining costs of, I believe, below $1,000 an ounce at the moment. And it's just a very interesting, exciting place to work. Next. So our 3 operating mines, we're in Ghana, so we're in the Ashanti Belt through there, next to many other prominent miners in the region. First started in 2012, or first gold pour in 2012. Secondary operating mine is in Côte d'Ivoire, Sisingui. That's on the border with Mali, so that comes with lots of interesting challenges in the region there. And our final operating mine is Yare, which is in the centre of Côte d'Ivoire. So that's our flagship mine. Now that's producing the bulk of our ore, and we've had a recent extension of LOM to 2035, and we will begin underground operations there in the near future. So like everyone's touched on, we had an enormous amount of dependency on Excel in the business, and version control, poor communications, literacy issues, the translation from data captured in field on paper, whether it was a 0, a 6, an 8, a 5, or what, that those numbers being transferred to digital wasn't always as accurate as you would like. Reporting was really manual. We would regularly see numbers being tricked day in, day out, depending on who was running the shift. And so that, I guess, trustworthiness of the data being captured wasn't fantastic. And then we had all kinds of issues where we've had changes of general managers on site, loss of intellectual property on where certain ROMs, also certain stockpiles with certain grades were in certain ROMs, and old heap leaches of various grades which people couldn't remember of what quality they were at. So we had a lot of issues trying to reconcile where we're actually operating, and so we needed a platform. Now, I'm not here to talk or champion any particular change management methodology, but something that Perseus has worked with, and I kind of echo with how we've operated moving forward, is this concept of ADCAR. So initially, in the before I started, we did have an attempt at installing some accounting software in ERDi, which is our Ghanaian site. Language, not so much of an issue there, but change management was really difficult, and we're dealing with all kinds of personalities and all kinds of degrees of self-importance, where it was difficult as a corporate to encourage the sites to report in a manner that we wanted them to report. They felt they owned, and they did. They ran their own operation. We were basically the receivers of the detail that they would provide us. And ultimately, that initial project with another product failed. And we spent God knows amounts of money on seeing that fail, and it's still a sore point today. We then started a new operation in Sisingui in 2018. We had a fairly dynamic and I guess ambitious general manager starting that operation. He recognised the issues that we had with Eddie Khan. It was a much smaller operation, and being greenfields, they wanted to hit the ground running with, I guess, that ability to capture the level of detail that we could trust and that he could report on, because these guys are incentivised on their own bonuses and whatnot to make sure they're doing the right thing. So we had good buy-in from the team there at Sisingui, and they really set that benchmark for how we expected this level of reporting to be captured in the business. We also then in early 2020 had our Yare mine start to mobilise, and again we were keen to ensure that these guys didn't start with any poor practices, so we used the models and the learnings from Sisingui to get these guys into using the product in the same manner. We're a very lean organisation as well. So the first thing you'll find in Africa is that you'll want to do a particular job. They'll want to throw more people at it. And we tend to find, one expat will take about 5 nationals to get about the same level of productivity. So we're very conscious of not overinflating their headcount to do very basic data capture tasks. So, tools like this really did help us capture that level of data and not get people too bogged down with timesheets and what have you. The change management was really important for us, not only from a corporate perspective and that we needed everyone to actually do the right thing, but they needed to see the value and why we needed them to capture the data in the way that we needed it. The desire was, I guess, secondary, because we want the guys motivated to succeed, but they needed to see the value in being able to report the quality of the information, not take the beatings if they start to record the data wrong, or if they start to miss the shifts, or they start to miss the information. They were rewarded to make sure that they got their data in on time, accurately, and with some degree of support from their management to allow them to do it. So these things evolved over time to actually empower them to take and drive that deployment for themselves. Once they had the knowledge in doing that, we were able to help them implement the package, and we're now at that stage where we're now just keeping them in check, reinforcing the values and reasons for why we're keeping that data collected. We've then, on top of all of our 3 operations, now implemented a corporate instance where we now bring all that level of detail back in for centralised reporting. So rather than having to beg and, I guess, push the guys on site to report in our time frame, which of course is always 8 hours behind, 8 hours behind, we've got that access to that information in the morning when we need to look at it. So what do we set out to achieve? We just wanted to systemise what we were doing. We're at a fairly, I guess, dramatic growth at the moment. We've got more things coming up. We wanted to make sure that we had a good template for recording our data across the organisation. It was sustainable. It was something that we were able to do day in, day out without having to re-educate all the teams on new ways of doing things. The reporting back to corporate, very fast. We got all the synchronizations through the back end to get that data to where we need it. And we've got all the right stakeholders now with the right level of visibility to that information. And I guess the biggest piece that we've been pushed to deliver is that ore accounting. We've now got, I guess, far better reconciliation of what's actually in each finger, what's actually in each stockpile, what's actually at each location, and what the historical run rate now of those particular ore piles have been. I guess, why did we go down Centric? These were decisions that were made before my time, but fortunately for me, they do align very well to our architecture. I'm not looking at lots of third-party Java plugins. I'm not looking at lots of things that would keep me up at night. it actually aligns very well to the software and infrastructure that we use. A lot of what we do now is cloud-based, so it does help us not having to worry about that infrastructure and that software as something that we have to maintain. It gave us that visibility. It gave us that ability to get the data out. It gave us the ability to have really good security on that information, and as well as the support that we've obtained from Centric has been amazing. You know, as a global reach, either through the team in Canada or the team here in Australia, we've been very happy to get that level of support for the guys both on site and training that will deliver that on premise in Africa from the Centric teams. You know, it's something you don't see often from software vendors. Jump back to Antonia on this.
Yeah, so talked about this a little bit already, but we really implemented all of the key Centric modules with Perseus. I think a big focus was giving them some tools to collect their data more accurately because mainly Excel was in place. So we looked at some ways to integrate with a couple of existing systems, but a lot of what we did was implement Centric's web-based forms for data collection. So that was a big kind of first step. And then we did implement our ore accounting module to help with kind of on the geology side with mainly stockpile management and some reconciliation processes as well. But another key piece, and that last key piece, are the generation of their critical reports. So daily, weekly, monthly reports through our dashboards and through our reporting tools. So that's the main output, really. So just a quick overview of what was actually implemented. And I'll hand it back to Stacey in a second here, but he did touch on how we're implemented at the 3 sites, actually on premises at the site level, but we're consolidating data from the 3 sites and hosting that in the cloud for the corporate team here in Perth to access. And we implemented one site at a time. Do you want to talk about cloud?
Yeah, so the reason we run on-prem for the sites is, as typically comms is not amazing in West Africa, so the software does allow for some form of store and forward. Data link will go off, eventually the data will find its way back to the cloud entity for us. So we know when the sites are down, and we've got that survivability to ensure they can continue operations. They're not dependent on the cloud in any stage, so we've got tolerances for 2 and 3 days worth of downtime per site without any impact to our daily ops. So the software again does exactly what the tin says on being able to aggregate and bring that to us in a very timely manner when that's online.
And just to kind of continue on that phased approach, which was also talked about earlier today as well, I think when you're implementing any sort of large-scale project, phased is the way to go, so you don't overcomplicate things and so that you can start delivering something really quickly so users can start to use the product and see the value and you don't overwhelm everybody. So in this case, we did one site at a time, and we also had a couple phases at each site. So we started off with the operational physicals, so mainly working with mining and geology to collect their metrics, to deliver some of their key reports, and then we incorporated the plant. So sometimes we implement in kind of phases based on departments, but it could also be, based on certain goals. For example, key reports that the site really wants. So how can we get to that as that first milestone? But in the case of Perseus, we focused on one department at a time and one site at a time.
So the deployment that we've got in place today, there's a number of contributing sources that we've got. So we've got our multiple different historians that can contribute data. We do have some planning data that comes in. We've also got our LIMS and assay data that gets fed into the systems. Eventually they find their way into the database, and then we've got all the outputs that we needed from the tool set. So there's the reports and dashboards that you can get from the Centric's interface itself, and then there's all the add-ins and all the exports where we can take it to Excel, where people love the Excel, You can take it out to the BI tools, whether you use Power BI or whatever. Again, all those data sets are presentable, that we can pull that data out in any way that we like. And then the tail end is we have a desire to now reintegrate that level of detail back into our ERP, because we do want to get to that point where we're able to analyse by pit, by bench, by level, by whatever drive that we're collecting the physicals from. We would like to match that against the costs. So that's where we're at. That's for you.
Yeah, this just really gives you an idea of what the implementation looks like. There's kind of these three main pillars. The first piece is just focused on the tools around the data collection, using Centric's forms, that piece that focuses on ore accounting that each site uses, and then some of the critical reports that are generated out of Centric. So just to give you a quick look at what it might look like.
And all of that level of detail can be brought out into Power BI too. So if you need to augment other data along that, you can do so. So for the phased approaches, we started Sissingi in 2018, a couple of years before I started, but the implementation there was very, very successful, and we moved straight into their plant physicals straight after that. And ERDi, which was our previous problem child, started in 2019, and I started as we resumed and continued with the phase 2 of their plant rollout in late 2020. And basically at that point is when we started to decide that we wanted to get a corporate view of the world. What we'd seen perform in Sissingi, we actually then decided we really needed to replicate that. And that was about the time when we'd moved from site-driven, site-owned implementations back to being more corporate orientated, but then using all those lessons learnt to see the implementation succeed. And then late 2020 is when we started rolling out Yare, and to date those platforms are still in use and working very well for the guys on site. What do we learn? As staff changed in the organisation, the ownership of the platform needed to change as accountabilities for the data became more apparent. The scrutiny to the level of detail that the guys were entering evolved. More policies, procedures, standards, guidelines, work instructions, help notes, training material. So a lot of that really did, get thrashed out, that we needed more of that earlier on. We've recognised that we needed to improve the naming conventions between our operations. So when we wanted to then match that data with other systems, we didn't have a standardised naming convention, which I know was touched on before. So kudos to that. That is an important thing to decide early on. The scope of the platform tended to grow only because as we expected more from the platform and the capability was realised, people did want more earlier on, and it was something that we had to try and, hold back and know that it was available. We can do these things, but there's only so much time in the day and only so much time that we can put into getting all of those functionalities in place, and that would be things like integrations with third-party tools and exporting the data and all these different reports. We can get there. It's a resourcing and a scoping exercise to manage that. Maintaining the motivation for the users, that's hard to do in Africa. So you've got to keep incentivising and keep managing their expectations and as to why they need to see this product succeed. And then from a stakeholder perspective, we moved that stakeholder engagement more from being site-driven to now being more corporate-driven because of the value that we've got from being able to report the numbers we've got back out to market and to give the guys their incentives. So managing that was, a difficult piece where initially the guys on site were able to manage and previously manipulate their own numbers, where now that corporate oversight has lessened that and given us more confidence in the numbers that we're doing. that's about us. So ultimately, we did get a single source for our production metrics. That was achieved. We have absolutely improved our material tracking and stockpile management. It was a mess before. The business has an incredible amount more visibility of what's around, what's in the ROMs, and the way that we operate is far more scalable than operating 3 independent niche mines with different ore bodies and different complexities at each site. So that standardization for us and that platform standardization has immeasurably improved the way that we operate day to day. So with that, I think that's us.